So I'm going to be giving the first lightning talk. We are moving out of keynote zone and into lightning talks. And I'm hopefully going to give you something useful that you can use around how your experience with building is changing. The first thing is like what we are calling this community. We're shifting from developer community to builders. It's a more inclusive term. It's recognizing that more people are able to get involved in building now, especially with the assistance of agents. And I am a product manager of developer experience, but I wasn't always a product manager. And what drew me to this area is actually that I was on the developer relations team. And I have the honor and privilege of sharing an office with Mike Pegg. So all of his stories about the history of Google Maps and the developer community, I never get tired of listening to those stories because it is really inspiring to me. The reason that I work on developer experience, both from the developer relations side and from the product management side, is because I have a lot of empathy for the struggle of how painful that experience can be. From the very beginning of my career as a student of learning how to code, learning about computer science, I found that technology typically or always has barriers that are difficult for people to understand. Even just like the pain of debugging and trying to figure out why isn't this working when I thought I followed all the instructions. And I put in, I think, my LinkedIn profile that my job is debugging that developer experience. Because I really want to make it easier for everybody else to get their ideas out and get over that friction. And so that's what I try to do in Google's platform. So at I/O a few weeks ago, Demis Hassabis, he said that when we look back at this time, we're going to realize that we were standing at the foothills of a singularity. And for him, as head of AI at Google, he's very excited about that. He's like really looking forward to the singularity and AGI. But for me, and I bet a lot of you may be looking at that as from a position of maybe fear or uncertainty of, okay, well, if the world is transforming, the world is changing because of AI, what is my place going to be in it? It's I'm hearing about layoffs. I'm hearing about people, recent graduates, having a hard time finding a job. And companies are trying to figure out their way of staffing with the assistance of AI. And so we don't know how to make use of all of these changes and how to filter through all of the noise in order to figure out how can we be useful, how can we find our way to be differentiated and figure out like what should we be focusing on, what should we be learning, and what should we be building. So there's a lot of possibility here, but there's also a lot of uncertainty. So hopefully today I'll give you some assurance that you are in exactly the right place today, sitting in this seat right here, because you are going to be learning about Google. In the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about Google, I'm going to talk about AI, I'm going to talk about maps, and how the combination of all of these things gives you a unique advantage over everybody else that isn't here today. You have all the ingredients, really, to take advantage of this opportunity. So first, Google. What I'm really proud of is that the mission has been durable ever since its founding 28 years ago. The mission has always been to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So thinking about how Google looks at the problems of the world, this will explain why Google was so early in investing in AI. The first iteration of organizing the world's information, as you very well know, is Google's approach to search. It was different from all of the other technologies out there, which were mainly web portals. And Google decided to, Larry and Sergey decided to index every page on the internet. And at that time, it was a much smaller internet. It was about 30 million pages. And not only index the pages, but also all of the relationships between the pages, the links, and the content of the pages, so that they could serve a relevant view for whatever you were looking for on the internet, ranked by which pages were the most authoritative. So that first problem of organizing our view, our human view of this very complicated internet, that was very useful. The next way that Google took on organizing the world's information was to organize our view of the world. 2004 is when they acquired Keyhole and Google Earth. And this took all of the imagery data, I believe 70 terabytes of images, which was huge back in 2004, and distilled it down through a 9 megabyte application that you would install on your computer and use that to load just the images that you needed to look at the part of the world that you wanted to look at the time. So that was huge. Bringing it through the bandwidth that was available to consumers at the time, and giving you everything from whole world view down to very zoomed in detailed views, and making that Earth imagery of the real world accessible to all of its users. Now, there have been many other products from Google that organize information, both personal and worldwide, but we have seen that the latest transformation is Google's investment in AI. And 3 years ago was when Google released its first consumer large language model. And we went from organizing the internet to organizing human knowledge, and doing that through language, through all spoken languages and written languages and programming languages. And this is how LLMs make it possible for us to have an organized way of accessing the world's knowledge, initially through chat, and being able to ask anything you want and get a coherent answer back. Now, the accuracy of that answer, we have been learning, is has had to evolve. But any question that you ask, you can get a very real sounding or correct sounding answer about it because of large language models. And these large language models can also put together code, and code that compiles and runs. And this is kind of like, it reminds me of the Wizard of Oz, where the large language models are a very convincing face of the answer of your interface to the world's knowledge. But as you've seen, if you look behind the curtain, the large language model sounds very intelligent and very powerful, but it's wrong a lot of the time because of the training data that the brain behind it has been limited. So since that 3 years ago, the pace of innovation and the technology has evolved very quickly because we see these problems. And the community has been developing new ways to address this challenge of accuracy of what the large language models are putting out. So this is where agents come in, and you've probably seen agents emerge. How I think about it is this metaphor of a cook trying to make a dish. So the cook's knowledge that he already has in his brain is like the LLM. It's trained on a corpus of data, and it's what he has learned in the past. And you've seen that, like, if you ask like a direct LLM a question about a recent sports game or some fresh information, like a place that is or a road that is temporarily closed, it doesn't know about that new data because it only knows about what it was trained on at a snapshot in time. So the first innovation about 1.5 years ago, maybe, was Retrieval-Augmented generation. And so this takes what the cook knows from his past training and gives him access to look up, maybe pull a cookbook off the shelf and say, oh, I'm going to get what's fresh. And in AI world, this is using a Google search to see what's new. So what was the game on Monday night? Who played? What was the outcome of the score? Now the LLM can answer coherently about Monday night's game. So RAG is something that gives the the agent fresh knowledge just about the thing it's being asked about. And that's the first way of solving the context problem. The second innovation last year was Model Context Protocol. By show of hands, who has used an MCP or MCP server? That's good. A lot of people have tried, because MCP was a really hot thing last year. It was like the first time that for our agents, they were given tools. So this is like the cook being able to have a knife, an oven, a mixer, being able to do things in the kitchen and interact and actually make changes, or go out and get new information that is specifically through an API, or actually, edit or make run terminal commands. So those tools were another huge advancement in what agents could do for us. But the problem with RAG and this, those two tools, the context and the MCP, was that it was inefficient. So in order to use MCP, it is like the cook having to pull the entire cookbook or multiple cookbooks off the shelf in order to find the one recipe that he needs. And that fills up his context window very quickly. It's very token inefficient. And if I make it, or I think of it very similarly to how I think about just our own brains. If you had to read an entire cookbook, would you be able to remember the one recipe that you were looking for? So this year, there is the new solution to that problem, which is skills. And skills are very token efficient because it's just like a recipe card. It's being able to pull just the one recipe that you need to make the one dish that you were looking for. And this makes it much more efficient for agents to search over many, many skills that are available to them and pick the right one for the job. So with all of this, the context and the tools and skills, and we even have other products, Google Maps platform is giving you not only access to our knowledge and database through our APIs, but also releasing these tools which make our APIs and information available to your agents. So we have our multiple MCP servers. We are just about on the cusp of releasing our first collection of skills. And later this afternoon, we'll have a product feedback session where we give you a preview of those skills. And we have grounding products, which are made specifically for the agents that you use and agents that you're building for other people to use. And so those are all specifically for the agentic world. Now, moving beyond LLMs and Google's mission to organize the world's information, I want to talk about spatial intelligence, which David talked about earlier. This Dr. Fei-Fei Li, she's considered the godmother of AI. She very early in her work as a computer scientist, researcher, and professor at Stanford, thought beyond language and words, and published research about imagery and reasoning over imagery. And very logically, going beyond imagery, she has spent much of her work recently in spatial reasoning. And this is her belief that spatial intelligence is AI's next frontier. That spatial intelligence is no stranger for us, but she has built her, she's actually started a company specifically around this world of spatial intelligence. And so she's fully betting on it. Now, Google is no stranger to spatial intelligence. We've been investing for over 20 years in building up spatial knowledge, both from a metadata about places and imagery standpoint, as I talked about earlier with the Google Earth imagery. But we also constantly are investing in freshness. This is making sure we're up to date on road conditions, businesses opening, closing, special hours on holidays, and reviews, everything that is live and at the moment. Busyness data, like how busy is it today at this location? that really gives us the most fresh and up-to-date map. And then finally, the going beyond just what you understand about the world today, there's understanding the future or modeling the future. And this is where, through Google Earth Engine, we make humongous data sets available for analysis and insights, both just looking at those data sets, but also combining them with your own data so that you can put together your own insights about what is going to happen in the future, or analyze over time what has happened in the past. And this 90 petabytes of data, I can't even comprehend how big that is, but a petabyte is many orders of magnitude bigger than any other number I've shared on this presentation. So that is really powerful. So with all of this information, I hope you can see that with agents, you can better understand the world as it is today. You can better predict the future. And with that, you can make better decisions, or you can empower your users to make better decisions in order to influence what you do next or what your users do next. And that's really how you can take control over the future and actually shape the future. And you're in a really great spot to do that. So I hope with our short time together that I've given you some insight, some more confidence that you have what it takes to be able to carve your own path in this quickly changing world, and that you can see how today we know that there are skills and tools that can help you bring spatial intelligence to your agents. But as we evolve, you can expect that the more technology is going to come, and you can sort of contextualize, as new tools and technologies come in, how is that going to help with making your agents and your AI more efficient? And that you can see that Google is a really rich source of the spatial intelligence that you can be building into your applications and agents. All right, thank you so much.